Between the popularity of Texas Congressman Ron Paul, former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson, and the forming of the Tea Party, is libertarianism on the rise? Our next guest says this may be the most welcoming Republican Party for libertarians since Barry Goldwater was the party's standard bearer in 1964. With us now, Daniel McCarthy, editor-in-chief of the American Conservative magazine. Daniel, welcome to Freedom Watch.
Thanks for having me on, Judge.
Did you think you'd see the day when two unabashed libertarians, Ron Paul and Gary Johnson, would be significant players in a Republican Party primary debate seeking to choose the standard bearer for the presidency?
I never dared hope that we would actually have two good anti-statist candidates like this. And it's a testament to just how far off course the Republican Party had drifted into big government and statism. Now you actually have to have libertarian contenders, and there's a huge demand for it.
A lot of Republicans are still down on George W. Bush for taking the phrase conservative Republican and extracting serious values and serious meaning from it. Paying for a war on a credit card, federalizing education, federalizing prescription drugs for seniors, borrowing $2 trillion, assaulting civil liberties under the Patriot Act. Are Republicans now distancing themselves from those things that have become the hallmarks of President Bush's administration and of his presidency?
Well, they're doing it out of pure necessity. Clearly, the grassroots are extremely unhappy with the direction that the party and the whole country took under Bush. But I fear that so much of the leadership that you find in Congress and many of the contenders for the presidency are people who are exactly cut from the same mold as Bush himself was.
What do you think the libertarians amongst the Republican Party, the Tea Party folks, the followers of Ron Paul, as large and enthusiastic as they are, the followers of Gary Johnson will do if the nominee and the vice president and the vice presidential nominee are not libertarians, but are mainstream Republicans, as has been the case back since 1964, and I guess you could argue since Reagan ran?
Well, the libertarians and Goldwater conservatives and a whole lot of independents will just stay home if you get yet another Bush or Dole or Nixon type with the Republican nomination.
Are any of the Republican candidates other than Ron Paul and Gary Johnson showing an appreciation for small government, maximum individual liberty, sound dollars, and a government that operates within the confines of the Constitution?
Well, you know, I mean, they will treat these things as talking points, but the question is, if you look at their records, do they actually live up to it? And if you look at whether it's Newt Gingrich or Mitt Romney or any of the others, you find, in fact, that they have a very big government history.
What do you think has fomented the rise of the Tea Party today? Was it George Bush's being a big government Republican and calling himself a conservative? Was it Ron Paul's persistent explanation of freedom, free market, and freedom-oriented values during his 25-year career? What do you point your finger at that brought us to this point?
Well, it's really a combination of both of those things. We had a supposedly conservative president. Certainly he called himself that, and too many of the conservative movement were supporting him. George W. Bush basically drove the country off a cliff, both in foreign policy and domestic policy. He tried to expand government in both places. And Ron Paul presented a real alternative in 2008. And that really woke up a lot of Americans. It showed them that there was an alternative to the bipartisan big government that we'd experienced for about 20 years.
Got it. Dan McCarthy, it's a pleasure. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks again.
Killing bin Laden could be